Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to be with my good friend Chris Goodacre today from Upsticks. Chris, how are you doing?
Very well, thanks. How about yourself?
Yeah, we've got lots of stuff going on in the background, Chris. I
Yeah,
guess that
but as
I guess,
always,
I guess like you, a lot of your work, people don't actually see it happening.
yeah,
They just know it's happened once they get their things sorted out. Chris, and
yeah.
tell us a little bit about Upsticks and what you do. We've got our theme for today, but tell us what Upsticks does in general.
So we deal with people's residency applications. Evidently, it's been a turbulent time recently, the last 2 or 3 years, with residencies all the way through the withdrawal agreements, especially for Brits, which is the subject obviously we're going to be talking about today. And all through that period, we've been dealing with the various scales of residency for British citizens, which brings us to the subject today, which is our main service now that we're actually providing, which is a non-lucrative visa.
Right. Okay. So I guess initially you were asking for people were asking you for help to swap over the green card or the green certificate for the TIE, but that's kind of settled down a bit now, is it?
Yeah, so I mean, we initially it was obviously getting the up till June 2020 was still getting the green style EU
Yeah.
residency card for Brits. We still do NIE numbers, EU residencies. I was actually at one this morning in Estepona. Um, but for Brits, it was always the green card, and then they changed the law, and it was applying for the TIE either initial application or the switch. And then since Brexit, it's been visas.
Okay. So visas. Um, what has changed with Brexit that makes this a necessity now, Chris?
Well, basically now British citizens are classed as third country nationals, so they can no longer get residency under the EU platform. So you can't
Right.
apply from it within Spain. The only way a British citizen can get access on the EU platform is via an EU relative. So if they're married
Right.
to an EU citizen, which we're talking about non-lucrative visas today, but I can tell you there's a whole other line with EU relations as well. But yeah, so
It's all a bit of a rabbit hole, isn't it? But
I,
once you get in,
as we're talking now, I'm thinking, right, here's another live I can do with them. So
so okay,
um,
tell us, Chris, what is a non-lucrative visa and why might a Brit want to apply for it?
non-lucrative visa is for Brits that want to come and live in Spain, and it's principally a retirement visa. So it's for people who are not working.
Right.
Okay. There was a lot of hoo-ha, for want of a technical word, at the beginning of the at the application process when people were
Right.
first getting non-lucrative visas, whether you could work remotely on this visa. And the consulates have been pretty strict in the fact that no, you can't. It's a retirement visa. It's for people who are not. When I say retirement, it's for people who have the funds to auto support themselves without working.
Without working, right? Okay, so if you've I don't know if you hit the millionaire by 45, which I'm sure you're
Yeah.
well on your way to, Chris, um, you could apply for the non-lucrative visa if you wanted. Um, what is the difference between the non-lucrative visa and people just applying to become residents here, Chris?
Well, you can't. I mean, you can't just apply now for residency. As I say, you have to
Right.
prove. So, whereas before you could just, as a British citizen, you could just apply for residency, proving the principles. The main principles of residency are always that you've got enough money to support yourself and healthcare. I guess that's
Right.
it. All residencies are surrounded by that base. Whereas before Brits had EU status, they could do it from within Spain and just turn up. It would be one appointment, and that could be managed by the extranjerias. Now you can't do that. Now you have to have like a, let's call it so the visa gives you the right to then apply for your residency card. So you have to actually apply for the right for residency because because Brits no longer have it because they're not EU citizens.
Right. Okay. So
So
you can't just say I want to apply for residency. in this case, you would need to start with a non-lucrative visa, and we're talking for people who don't need to come here and work, Chris. That's the key
That's
bit,
right.
isn't it?
Yeah,
Right,
that's correct. For people who don't want to come here and work, and also for people who, because after the first 5 year period, so the non-lucrative visa consists of obviously applying for the visa, which will go through the requirements and stuff now, and then a renewal period all the way up to when you get your permanent residency. So
right,
the temporary, like for EU residents as well, but there's a temporary 5 year period where you can't work, you're on a non-lucrative visa. But once you've completed that 5 years and you switch it for a permanent residency,
right.
then you can work. You can work after that 5 years. So, I mean, there are a few younger people who we've spoken to, and we're putting structures in place who can actually afford to go through the 5 year period, but would probably need to work after that, and that's viable as well.
Right. Okay. So if I we'll go back to talk about the process, but if I got the non-lucrative visa, how long is it valid for?
The initial visa is valid for a year, so you
Okay.
get a year's residency card, and then you renew that for a further 2 years. After that, for a further 2 years, and after that, you'll get your permanent residence.
Right. Okay. We won't talk about the renewal process yet, Chris, because you probably haven't been through that yet.
Well,
That's
they're just coming up now, so
something to look forward to, isn't it?
yeah,
So
yeah.
where does this whole process start? If people want to come here, let's just talk about retiring for the moment. I think that's the simplest way to think about it. People want to
Yeah.
come over here. Where does the whole process start, Chris?
So the process starts in the UK. You need to apply for the visa at your local consulate. So there's three consulates in the UK where you can apply for a non-lucrative visa.
Okay,
That's London, Manchester, and Edinburgh.
right. And how are appointments going for people getting these appointments at the embassies?
Really well now. I mean, the thing is, there's we had obviously all the horror stories last year, and it was the whole the whole of the period of March until October, even early November last year, was an absolute disaster, really, for
Really?
appointments and knowing the requirements and stuff. It was really hard. But now, hats off to the Spanish consulates. They really have geared up and got it ready, especially London. So London had an absolute collapse last year with the appointment system due to the students and stuff. And then they implemented a appointment booking
Right.
system where you apply for a code. So there's a lot more to do, but
Uh,
it does actually work really well.
okay. So
So
would people get involved with a company like yours, Chris, from this sort of pre-application stage before going to the embassy, or would they need to go and do the embassy stuff on their own first and then get help to sort of take the process forward?
no, certainly pre-application. So what we normally do is when we're speaking to people, and it's all about the structure of the application. So if
Okay.
you're and getting the timing right, because some of the documents are time sensitive. So what we normally do is when we're speaking to people and they're telling us about their plans and stuff, then we set a target date for the appointment and a target date for when you want to be in Spain with a visa in your hand. So,
Right.
and from there, the structure works backwards.
Right. Okay.
And depending on what time of the year it is, so we've had, for example, I was on the phone to somebody this morning whose target date is to be in by the 1st of June. So then we have a target date the 1st of May at the consulate because it's Manchester and they're taking around a month to process the visas, and our start date for the paperwork is 6 weeks before the target date for the appointment.
Right. Okay. What are the kind of things that people have to produce at the embassy part of this, which is the first stage of the process? What are the
Yeah.
kind of documents that they have to take with them?
Well, like all residency applications, you always have to prove that you've got financial stability somehow and you've got healthcare. So
Yeah.
obviously, the biggest thing with the visas is the financial stability because that is a lot more than it used to be for the EU style residency.
Yeah. Can you give us an idea of how different it is from what the old EU residency was, Chris?
Yeah, so at the moment there's a system in Spain called EPREM, and at the moment for an EU residency you just need one times EPREM, which is around €7,400, I think,
Right.
and you need four times EPREM for a non-lucrative visa. So
Right.
it just falls short of €28,000 that you need per year to prove that you can survive in Spain.
Right.
Now, that's not per person. If you're a married couple, then if one person is a beneficiary of the other, then it's around €35,000 that you need to either income or savings or a mixture of both for that first year to get your visa.
And right, okay. So it really has changed quite dramatically, Chris,
Yeah.
hasn't it? From when we were EU members and could
Yeah.
become EU residents.
Yeah, it has. And in fact, when we finish the live, I will send you a link to an article on our website that explains all the exact figures,
Right.
which I probably should have here now with me, but um, and yeah, it has. It really has changed. I mean, the biggest shocker really is obviously the renewal process as well, because you have to be able to prove that you can cover yourself financially, not only for that first year, but for the renewal process. Now, the renewal after a year is 2 years. So if you've got an
Right.
income of, if it's a single applicant, for example, and you've got an income of €28,000, and that income is annual, then you're going to be fine through the renewal stages. But if you're
Uh-huh.
working on a basis of savings, for
Okay.
example, then you've got to make sure you've really got your ducks in a row.
Right. Because what they don't want is for people to have that, let's just say 28,000 to get their first visa and then to spend all of that before the
Yeah,
renewal stage. They've still
yeah.
got to have, I presume, double that then for the next 2 years. Is that how it
Yeah.
works? Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, obviously, everybody's circumstance is different, and I mean, so what? So again, that's why we get involved early because first, unfortunately, the first question we have to ask is how much money you got and how you're going to present it to the consulate. So
Yeah.
a lot of people work on a basis of savings and income, so they'll have a set fixed annual income from a pension, maybe. Then they have to make up the difference using savings.
Right.
Other people just, we have a lot of people who are selling properties and using the funds to to fund the visa from selling the property, and then they may get pension a couple of years. So they have to be
Right.
really careful with what they're using until that point where they start receiving it.
Right, sure. The other thing that you mentioned, and I know I've come across this on social media, Chris, is
Yeah.
complete healthcare cover. Do you want to
That's
say something about that? Because let's be honest, if a lot of the people who are involved in this are retired, how are people finding things in terms of getting the healthcare cover that is needed to accompany this application?
well, I mean, this it's been such a bumpy ride with the healthcare because initially obviously there's two forms of healthcare for somebody who lives in Spain and doing a residency application. The first form is obviously private healthcare and getting a private policy which actually meets the visa requirements. And there's state healthcare, which is proving that you've got access to state healthcare. Now, last year when we were going through the first applications and stuff, the consulates were giving us different consulates were giving us different information regarding the requirements for the private healthcare. It was just, some would take annually renewable policies. Some were asking for the policies to have 12 months on them. Obviously, there's strict requirements on how the policies are positioned, so you can't have any co-payments in it, etc., etc.
Right.
Um, what we found is that, well, first of all, I took a trip to London actually last year just to speak to the consulate and say, what on earth's going on? You need to give us some stable ground to work with. You can't reject one certificate one day that was valid yesterday.
Right.
And they've all seemed to have got to the agreement that when the policies have to be a full 12 months and from either the time that you want to enter Spain or from the time of the appointment. There has been quite a few companies who have sort of adapted quite well to the requirements and the needs of older people for the private policies. So that's good. I mean, I say a lot of people are realizing that it's a quite lucrative business as well. And the big news was last year, Brits used to be able to use an S1 form, so it's an exportable healthcare form to
Right,
register under the old EU residency platform.
right,
And then when we came to start doing the visas, they said, no, you can't use an S1 because that S1 would have had to have been previously registered in Spain and have a certificate to prove that you're accessing healthcare. Well, that's impossible without residency. So it was chicken and egg, which
right.
basically meant that the S1s couldn't be used. That was all the way up till late last year when they actually turned around and said, no, now we're going to start accepting the S1 forms because it's exportable healthcare, it's EU, and we've actually had them go through now with S1 forms. So
All right,
for
okay.
people who aren't of pensionable age, of state pensionable age, they have to get private healthcare, CLC, as we say, and
Yeah.
if you're of state healthcare age, you can actually get an S1 now.
Yeah, and as you say, the healthcare can't be with co-payments. So, it has to be with all conditions covered, and basically whatever's going to happen to you, even if it's a pre-existing condition, you still have to be covered by that healthcare. Is that basically what that means?
Yeah, yeah, it is. And I mean, I'll definitely recommend that you find a specialist broker rather than just approaching one company, to do that. And, even the other thing is obviously, so people, it's a tough one because if people are a state retiree age and can get an S1, um, it's even a good idea to have private healthcare for the first year anyway, because although they'll accept it for your visa, when you get here to Spain, you finally get your residency card and you go to register the S1, it could be 3 or 4 or 5 months until you finally get that. And
Right.
you don't want to leave yourself exposed anyway during that time. So it's
Yeah.
sort of again, it's checking on a case by case basis. If someone's got no chance of getting healthcare and they can get an S1, brilliant. If not, I always think for the first year it's a good idea to get it anyway.
Right. So even if people qualify for the S1,
Yeah.
the problems of getting that registered here with the Social Security, with your local health center, might mean that, I suppose, especially if you've got any pre-existing conditions, that you want to be covered, at least for that time. And it's been quite difficult sometimes getting these appointments, hasn't it, Chris?
It has, it has, and obviously the social system here is, it is doing its best during COVID times, but you know, um, if you're not used to it and you can afford the healthcare for the first year, while there's a world of difference sometimes against seeing somebody maybe who speaks your language while you're getting your feet under the table.
Yeah.
So again, it's individual circumstance,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's Social Security as well. They're taking sometimes 3, 4, 5 months to register the S1s. So
Yeah.
really, you've got to make sure you've got your ducks in a row and you're covered, whichever way.
Yeah. Are you, or have you been dealing with people, Chris, or have you seen people who are having their non-lucrative visa turned down? And what sort of reasons would that be for?
At the beginning, we saw a few where people were turned down because they were working. Basically, they were suspected they were going to work.
Right.
That's again younger people not being rejected, but more requirements when once they've handed in their documentation. The consulate, same as it's actually the same as immigration here when we've been dealing with withdrawal agreements. Sometimes they'd send these letters out that they're quite famously asking for more stuff. The
Right.
same goes for a visa. So a visa initially, the process is that they get the paperwork gets prepared and you hand it to the consulate. The consulate think that that's acceptable. They'll then charge you the money for the fee to make the application. And then they may or may not come back for more information.
Right.
So that's what we've seen a lot of where we had recently we had last week we've had three where one they requested just information regarding bank transfers. Well, they just wanted to know where money was coming from and going to. We
Right.
approved it and they got their visas approved straight away.
Uh-huh.
Another query was with healthcare. We just had to get a subsequent document. It was fine. That went through. And yeah, bits and bobs like that. They call them requerimientos. They call them requirements. It translates to.
Right. So if people basically have the money side of things in order, they have their healthcare in order. I know you have to get the forms right and all the right boxes ticked and things. Are you finding that generally, if the money's in order, the healthcare is in order, then these things are being approved? Is that your general experience?
Oh yeah, sure, yeah, definitely. I mean, there's three red flags with a non-lucrative visa at the moment. It's the healthcare, the money, and also criminal record. You have to prove
All
that you
right,
haven't got a criminal record.
right,
So whenever I'm doing a discovery call with somebody, we go through those 3 points, and from our experience, obviously gained the last year doing them, we can tell from those 3 points whether someone's going to qualify. But yeah, no, I mean, it's really good. I think at the beginning, the consulates and even immigration were slightly shocked at the quantity of
right,
non-lucrative visas,
right.
because I'll be honest with you, even for us, they're matching the amount of EU residents we used to do, if not more. Um, and once they've sort of got their ducks in a row, the process across the consulates now has sort of stabilised, where they're all asking for the same documents. As long as you qualify, then yeah, I mean they're flying through, they're coming through. We have lots of people living here happily now on non-lucrative visas.
Right. Um, Chris, the other thing that strikes me, and I know people have been looking for a way around this 90 days and 100 days as non-residents, people that have apartments here, for example. Um,
Yeah.
and, I have heard people say, oh, well, I'll just get a non-lucrative visa and that way I can stay as long as I like. Is it that simple?
No, it's not. It's a visa. It's not just a way around. There isn't a way around. You can't be a swallow anymore. It's tough.
Right.
The non-lucrative visa has strict requirements on the renewal basis of how long you're allowed to be outside of Spain.
Yeah. Yeah.
So within the first 5 years, which is your temporary residency period, you're only allowed to be up to 10 months outside of Spain, which basically gives you an average of 2 months a year outside
Right.
of Spain to maintain the renewals.
And and
Now,
that and that's anywhere, isn't it? I mean, it's not back
yeah,
to the
no,
UK. I mean, it could be, holidays, visits to the UK or anything, but it's 10 months
yeah.
in total in the 5 years. And what happens if they're out of Spain for longer than that?
You could be denied your renewal. So you can spend any period up to not over 6 months out, but
In
that
one
eats
period.
into your 10-month total. So it's
Right,
counterproductive. So if you're the first year, if you stayed 8 months and had 4 months out, got your renewal, but that 4 months is going to eat into your 10 months.
right.
Um,
So
it,
this isn't just a shortcut around the 90 and 180 days. You really have to be committed to becoming a resident, don't you, Chris?
You certainly do. You do. And I mean, as I say, we're going to start the renewal process now, but it's always good in terms of if when you come to renew, if you've got your financial assets in Spain, i.e., if you're using savings, then the immigration here is only going to want to see money here. You
Right.
know, it's a commitment to Spain. It's a visa. It's a residence visa. So
Yes.
yeah, it's not
Yeah.
a way around the 90-180 rule.
Yeah. And if people go down this route thinking that it is, they're going to be sadly disappointed, aren't they?
You could be tripped up on the renewals. Yeah, yeah, certainly so. And then if you don't get your renewal, then you evidently would have to go back and start again. There's no, you can appeal and etc. etc. and go through the exact same process as any immigration that gets rejected. But essentially, if they don't let you renew, you would have to go back and start again. So it's definitely, you've got to make a commitment to Spain.
Yeah. And just to maybe point out the obvious, Chris, if people are going through this process, then they become tax residents here as well, don't they?
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. They do. You've got to have your ducks in a row in every shape and form.
Yeah.
You can't. You will become a fiscal resident here. Obviously, we don't give tax advice, but it's a 5 year plan. When we're speaking to people, and we work on a 5 year plan
Right.
on what you're going to do if you intend on staying. Now, don't get me wrong. We've got a couple of people here at the moment who are having a year out. So that's
Okay.
it. They came to us, we're having a year out. we're like, okay, well, great, this is going to be your position. Speak to this person who's a tax advisor. They give us the okay. We go ahead with their visa, and they're absolutely fine. So, as long, but you're still committing to being a tax resident here. And as I say, it really is a 5 year plan, until you get your permanent residency.
Right. Well, I mean, I think, I mean, from my point of view, I've never been through this process, obviously, but I certainly feel a lot clearer about it now, Chris, that, I understand, um, that this is a real commitment to Spain, is what you said. It's a
Yeah.
commitment to Spain. It's not, yeah, I suppose if all you want is a year out, then it would be fine for that. But then you need to
Mhm.
become a tax resident. And then if you come back to your home country, re-register as a tax resident there again, that starts to get complicated in itself, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it does, and I mean, it's not for the faint-hearted, the process. It's not something that, although obviously, like there's companies like ours which help people, the actual application itself is quite funny because we go through 6 weeks of preparation. Some of the documents are time sensitive, so you've got the criminal records and a certificate that you need from a doctor, which is time sensitive, and it gives you their 90 days
Right,
validity. So we always work on a 6 week basis before the appointment because that gives us enough time to prepare, but also gives us enough time for the unexpected. So if somebody suddenly turns around and says, "Chris, I'm going to have to push the appointment back a month," the documents just go back a month. We just shift the
right.
whole process.
Yeah,
But so you take the 6 weeks preparing everything and redo the application form, send them out in a pack, and you go through the final checklist and everything. And then everybody in the UK, because a lot of people who are coming over who haven't had any experience here, like we have, with immigration and stuff. And they're quite underwhelmed by the appointment because they get there and you just got somebody there behind a glass screen. They take one look at the list of things, go, "Oh, yeah, that's all right, stamp it, go pay your money." So come out quite disappointed that it wasn't like a great interview or anything. It was just like a bit of, you know,
So they feel as if they've been cheated a bit because they haven't been interviewed and allowed to tell them how good they are and why they should be allowed into Spain.
yeah, no, that's true. And it's £516 each,
Whoa,
you know.
right. Yeah, I
So
mean, that's, these are all things that people have to take into account, aren't they? And
yeah.
does it make any difference? I know the answer to this, but any difference whether this person has a property in Spain or not?
Well, actually, it makes a difference in some circumstances. So no, you don't have to. If somebody's in the UK, never had anything to do with Spain whatsoever. At the moment, you can even use a correspondence address to get over here and get yourself set up. Okay, so we
Right,
have people using our office address. Now, where a property comes into it when maybe you're younger and you have to prove that you're not going to be working.
right,
So, if you're, say, in your mid 50s and you're still 10 years or 15 years off of retirement age and coming over, maybe with just initially applying with enough money for the first year, and then you're going to get more money after that, for whatever reason, having
right,
a property actually does help because that is proof of your financial stability and why you can afford to be in Spain with the money you've got.
right. Okay. So,
So we sort of cleared that up when I spoke to London. I said, look, do you want us to be put? Because we pull off nota simples for everybody who owns a property here,
right,
views it as a holiday home, and add it to their application. Though it's not part of the official documentation that they request. And it goes into that pile where slightly younger people, we're always presenting things like P45, proving they're not working,
right,
et cetera, et cetera. So do you need to have a property? Do you need to have a rental? No, you don't. You can have a correspondence address. You don't have to have ever entered Spain before getting a non-lucrative visa. From the UK, it's different from other embassy consulates around the world. Other consulates do request that you have
right.
property or have an address, but the UK don't. But it certainly does help if you need to prove your financial stability and it's a bit iffy, whether you're too
Yeah.
young or not.
And the difference between people trying to do this on their own, Chris, or using professionals like yourselves, there
Mhm.
are companies in different parts of the country that are doing this kind of thing. Um, I guess the difference is that you want to do this once and get it right first time, don't you?
Yeah, yeah, it is. It's because it's a lot of money. It's peace of mind. Now, no one should ever tell you, oh, you can't do it yourself. It's a little bit like, you're plumbing at home. You can do your plumbing yourself if you want, but you get a plumber to do it, don't you?
Yeah,
Uh, it's, I think it's more peace of mind. We have clients that come in on every level. So we have clients that come in which are more or less prepared, most of it themselves, but just need a few T's, crossing and I's, dotting, and just want somebody to be there by their side if suddenly there's something happens and they need to bounce that off of somebody. And we have
sure.
clients where just don't have a clue, completely don't know where to start. So, I think the main thing is also it's the unexpected checking of the wording. They're very specific on wording on documents.
Yeah,
If, for example, we had another one 2 weeks ago where the guy had a pension and it met the minimum requirement in pounds in sterling, but it
right.
didn't meet it in euros in terms of if you were to
The
do the conversion, it would have met it,
the
but it didn't look the
exchange
same
rate.
in pounds.
Yeah, yeah,
So he was actually at the consulate and phoned me, and I asked the consulate in Manchester. I said, "Do we need to bring a conversion of this to prove it's right?" And they went, "No, you don't have to." Okay, so I sent him along about the conversion, and next thing you know, I get a call. They say I haven't got enough money, so I quickly jumped on the computer, actually wrote in a scritto, just said, "Right, this is blah blah blah. This is the conversion." I said, "Email this to them," and believe it or not, hey ho, it was fine. It was great. Once they saw it in black and white. So
right,
last minute things like that, it helps to have somebody by your side.
right. Chris, unless there's something you'd like to add to this, I mean, I think we've covered the topic
Yeah,
pretty well, because if I understand it,
but
anybody can understand it, you know.
yeah,
But
sure.
is there anything you'd like to add to that, Chris?
No, nothing's it. I mean, I think just it's although it's been turbulent times, the positive thing, and for areas in Spain now is that these visas are working. People are coming here and they're retiring. I know it's sad for people who can't afford it, but on the upside, we didn't know what was going to happen, and
Right.
now everything's stable, and we are seeing lots of these visas being approved. And people coming over and retiring and making the plans accordingly. So yeah, it's good news for areas where we live, and seeing that this is now stabilising slightly, and seeing people come over and enjoying what we enjoy.
Yeah. So, Chris, I've put your website on the bottom of the screen here, www.upsticks.es. If people want to contact you, they can do it via your website. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, we've got on the website there. We've got a book a call section where you can book a call, and we always give everybody a half an hour call, so they can ask us questions as much as we can ask them questions. We
Right.
find that's the best way
Okay.
to proceed. Or if not, there's our email address there. Drop us an email, and we'll get back to you. And yeah, and thanks for checking it on the live.
Chris, would you like to come back at some point and pick up on another topic?
Yes, yeah, yeah, I would do. That would be wonderful. There's plenty to talk about. So yeah, I'll jump back on.
Okay, Chris, great speaking to you. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and knowledge of all this with us. And it's great to talk to someone like you, because you're doing this on a regular basis and you're
Yeah,
completely up to date. That's why I never advise people on these things, because what might have
yeah,
been valid 3 months ago might not be valid now, you know. So I, I,
yeah.
I never give people advice on these things at all. But thanks for sharing your expertise with us, Chris. And we'll organise another date and another topic with some of the work that you're involved in, and we'll pick up on that.
Brilliant, excellent. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thanks, everyone. We've had a good number of people joining in. We haven't had many comments, but you've got Chris's details here, and if you want to contact him, please feel free to do that. And well, we'll keep you posted on any future live streams on life after Brexit. Take care, everyone.